hours to record the session, so my apologies. In fact, actually, because we have extra time for the 3 hours, let me go back from the beginning so I can capture everything. I definitely apologize about that. All right, I'll just go through this quickly because I've already discussed it, so it can be captured in the recording and hopefully that can be shared to you later. So like I said earlier, we'll be discussing the introduction to UWL learning technologies, and this is the first of the sessions within this CPD group. We looked at what you'd expect to learn from these technologies, and from the responses you gave, it showed you wanted to do and or cover most of the stuff related to Collaborate, Turnitin, and Blackboard, particularly in the sides of creating content, teaching, using it for learning, sharing files and folders, and of course, assessments. We also discussed that we will be looking at the technologies themselves, what they are, and how we use them at UWL. And so we'll also practice their use so that you can use those different use cases for when you're teaching. We talked about what is a technology, and we saw that it's a broad range of communication, information, and related technologies that are used to support learning, teaching, and assessment. And we said that the last few bits are very important, that the technology has to, in one way, shape, or form, support learning, teaching, and assessment. It can be either one of them, a combination, or all three. We also looked at the technologies that we have at UWL, and that's the list there, from Collaborate, Blackboard itself, Blackboard Ally, Turnitin, Campus Press, UWL Replay, and All Everywhere. We said we'll be discussing these, looking at every single technology with some of the main use cases and all features they have, so we could then better discuss them and see how you can use them towards your practice in teaching and learning. So we'll start with Collaborate today, because as we said, it's the one that we're using for teaching, and some of you may have used it over the last few months or the year and a half to do teaching online. We also said that there are other technologies here that could be used for the same thing, things like Blackboard Collaborate or Zoom, Microsoft Teams or Zoom, but we don't consider those as learning technologies per se, even though they are, mainly because we either don't support them within the Expert Academy, or they are managed and are supported by other teams within UWL, or they're not part of what we use within the university. A good example of that would be Zoom itself. So within Collaborate, the main key things or the main key features that you would need to know about is creating and managing a session. That's the number one feature, because it's mainly the feature that it provides so that you can do remote learning as we're doing at the moment. Then you'll also need to know how to manage attendees. This generally means that you are able to look at the different attendees you have, change their roles as required, maybe be able to communicate with them while in the session. If you find that there's some that are being slightly difficult, you are able to remove them. Hopefully you won't experience that, but it could happen. And you're also able to maybe make some of them captioners and things like that, which we'll look at in a moment. Then we have the recording of a session and accessing of said recording. Depending on the size of the recording, it would take some time to create and make it available within the module. So because this is a 3-hour session, hopefully should end sometime sooner before that. It would take maybe a few hours for that particular recording to be available because it's much bigger. But in cases where you have like an hour-long recording, a few minutes, it will be much quicker to create and be available. We'll also look at sharing files and contents within a Collaborate session, as I'm doing at the moment, but the approach I've used now is to share my entire screen, because there are some parts that you would need to see for when we do some or discuss some of the other technologies, particularly All Everywhere. We'll also look at how you can send messages through chat. Some of you have already been using this, which is great, but there are some of the other features that have recently been introduced that could be good for you to keep in mind. And then, of course, there is the participants report. This would be generated with the recording, and it would show the number of attendees who joined the session, the number of times they joined, And the number of times would normally mean, say the attendee may have had a hard time joining the session, probably because they didn't have as strong of an internet connection, so they would drop in and out. And as a result, that would create a new log every time they come back in. So it will show you that as well. And we'll also see how to create interactive features within the session, for example, a poll, and be able to ask your students and other participants to take part in the poll, and you'd be able to use those polls later by downloading their results from within Blackboard after the session is created. Okay, so we also have Blackboard. Blackboard is the biggest of all the technologies we have, and the reason why is because it has somewhat of different functionality that all of these other individual technologies has. You can use it to create assessments, you can share content, you can do marking, you can manage your users from there. You can also do communications, which is integrated with other technologies they own, such as Blackboard Collaborate. You could use it for managing accessibility of your content to ensure that the content is fully accessible to those who need it or those who use assistive technology. This is via a system called Blackboard Ally, which we'll also look at in a moment. You can also use it to integrate with other systems such as Poll Everywhere and or Panopto, which is our UWL replay. And we'll look at that in a bit. So the first of the few things that you should know about is creating and sharing learning materials, and this would obviously be based on UWL Flex. For those of you who may not be aware, UWL Flex is a recent approach that we created that adds both perspectives for face-to-face and online teaching, which is the blended learning approach, and it has three parts that's divided to when you're creating your content. The first of which is called Investigate. This is when you introduce your student to a specific topic, provide them some individual materials for them to find a bit more information on their own so they can start being familiar with the topic that you'll be discussing. This is generally done often, say, a week prior to the actual session that you'll deliver. So for instance, say your semester was starting next week. That's when you start doing your teaching. So technically then the materials for Investigate should be available sometime now, or at least any time earlier before the session itself, so your students can start looking into them. Then the second part of UWL Flex is called Apply, and that would be the synchronous lecture or the synchronous session, similar to what we're doing at the moment. That's when you would communicate with the students, maybe explain to them what your intentions were for the session. You'd be able to cover all the material based on what you have prepared. And in this is the part that they will also have discussions with you in case they have any additional questions as to what they may have found, what they need clarification for, and so on and so forth. And then lastly, of the three parts, you've got Consolidate, which is more of a follow-up where you can give them a bit of an activity, such as, say, a 5-point quiz, which is not generally marked in most cases, just so that you could see how well they've understood the topic. And you also try to give them a hint or reintroduce them to the following session that they'll be delivering for the following week. And that's when you create your more or less your scaffold of learning, because you're giving them small chunks of what they need to learn week by week until the end of the semester. So we'll look at how to create the materials following that approach. Then we'll look at the creation of assignments and assessments. These two are considered to be different because the assignments are mainly referred to as the document-based ones, where you may require someone to upload like an essay, a report, a PowerPoint slide, maybe an Excel spreadsheet, that kind of stuff. Whereas the assessments would normally be quizzes or maybe surveys. And in other cases, you may also maybe require them to upload some multimedia or interactive content as an assessment for those of you who may have such assignments. And this would be like recordings, maybe audio or video or both, or maybe a folder containing different parts of the assessment, like a zip file. We'll look at some of them. Then you'd have your marking, grading, and feedback. You'll have communication with students. You'd also be able to enroll users and manage them within the module or course. You'll be able to copy and or move content, whether within the same module or different modules that you have access to. And finally, for those of you who have access to admin, which is a feature that allows you to access more or less the back end of Blackboard, where you are able to use it to interact with and or search for different courses, modules, and communities, as well as users, and engage with them as needed. This is not a feature that's awarded or provided to everyone. It's mainly given to your school administrators, your course leaders, say your heads of school, department, or heads of subject, quality leads, and people of such nature. Anyone else, say you're a module leader, for example, you would have a different access, which is maybe being enrolled on Unity, and that ensures that you're automatically enrolled to all future versions of that particular module. So I'll look at some of this as well. Then we have Turnitin. On this, it's an assessment-based tool that is incorporated within Blackboard at the moment. That's how we access it, though it does have its own access from either its app or online on their website. So from this, we'll look at creating an assignment, setting the preferred optional settings, and that may include whether you want to maybe generate and or access similarity reports, when the submissions are accepted, or whether submissions are accepted after due dates, and so on and so forth. That also includes attaching and using of rubrics and or grading forms, which would normally help you when you're doing your marking. You'd also be able to access the submissions that are made by your students, where once your students have submitted to that particular assignment, you're able to go in and see what they've submitted, mark them, and provide your feedback. And that's the following bit, which is your grade and assigning of feedback. And finally, there may be cases where your student may raise a concern that they're unable to submit an assignment for whatever reason. In most cases, it's probably because they're unable to access Blackboard due to whatever is going on. Say they don't have access to their account, maybe they have issues with internet or something else. And in such cases, then, as an instructor on the module, you do have the ability to visit the assignment and be able to submit it on behalf of your student, which we'll look at that as well. We'll also look at UWL replay. From this, we'll see how you can upload recordings. This assumes that you have the recording available on one of your devices. Say it's one that you recorded somewhere or downloaded somewhere and you want to share that with your students, you'll have that ability to upload it and do the sharing. That's the second bit, which is the sharing of the recording. Then you also have the creation of an assignment folder, and also from which you can access the submission made by the student. The assignment folder is technically similar to an assignment within Blackboard or Turnitin. It's basically a private space that an instructor can access to view all submissions from all students, but students will only be able to access the submissions that they made. And finally, we'll see how you can create recordings directly from within Panopto, which is the main software that UWL Replay runs on. We'll also look at Campus Press. From creating a blog, there should be your own personal site from which you could share your own personal content, maybe showcase some of the research you're doing, or just share general material with your students, whatever that may be. You'll also be able to create a class blog and accept join requests. A class blog is generally similar to what an assignment is, where it's kind of a virtual space within Campus Press that you would create and set maybe functionality to allow students to be able to add and or remove content. If a student joins the class blog, you are able to access their site automatically because you'll be added as a teacher to their site. There's also the ability that if, say, the class blog is, sorry, the module or the assignment for the student requires that they should have completed creating their blog, say, within 2 weeks' time. When that second week comes in during the due date, you are able to disable features to not allow them to make changes to their blog. So it's technically like an assignment in that perspective. and we'll see how that works. You'll also be able to create and or add new pages, comments, and or posts, so that you not only can you do this within your own site, your own personal blog, but also those to which you've been added from your students. Say you want to put like comments or feedback or engage with them on their blog, so you'll do that via comments. So you'll see how that can be done. And then of course adding users. From when you have your own site, it will show you how you can add someone else to it. Then we'll look at Poll Everywhere, which you've already tested at the moment, which is the very first link I shared with you, and you're able to provide some comments as to what you wanted to learn. The reason why this is important is because Poll Everywhere is mainly an engagement platform. It can be used, as we've seen at the moment, where you can engage people synchronously or asynchronously. The synchronous part is what we did just when we started, where I asked you to let me know what it is that you would like to learn, and from that we'd be able to have discussions about it. And the asynchronous would be creating one of the activities, sharing a link with someone, and have them complete it at any time they see fit. They don't have to do it while you're with them. So with that, we'll start by creating accounts for you. However, that has a caveat. In some cases, not all of you may be able to have an account, and the reason is at the moment the system is currently blocked to only allow access to anyone who has a uwl.ac.uk email address. And those would generally be students or members of staff who are directly linked to UWL. So unfortunately, that means for any of you who may be from partner institutions, you may not be able to get an account on Poll Everywhere, but I will look into that if there may be a possibility. Then we'll look at how we can create an activity. So like I said earlier, the one that you engaged with to give your feedback, that is an activity. I'll show you how to create something similar. You'll be able to share activities. So like what I did, I embedded it within the PowerPoint slides, and you were able to use it. We saw the results on the website. And you're also able to share the activity itself with some of your team members, which we'll show you at the moment. The idea for that is when you have the activity created, you can have like shared ownership between yourself and those with whom you are in the same team. And that would mean that they're also able to use it within their own presentations as they see fit. We'll see the responses on how you can view those. And lastly, be able to generate and view the statistics report for any of the activities you have, or in an overall folder in which all or some of your activities may be stored. Now with Blackboard Ally, with this there isn't much to discuss because it's mainly just runs in the background to help you either generate the what is called the alternative formats of content that you submit. Say you upload a Word document, it will generate a PDF version, an electronic publication, maybe an audio file based on the written content within the document. It may generate an HTML version of that document, and so on and so forth. And this obviously allows those who may need those alternative formats or are using the assistive technologies are able to consume that content as needed. So with Blackboard Ally, we'll first see how you can access an accessibility score within the module. This is basically one that would show you in overall, in a holistic view, how well or how accessible is the content that you have uploaded in Blackboard is. It will also show you individual scores or percentage scores for each content, and you are able to make necessary changes to make that content additionally fully accessible. It'll also indicate some of the problems that it has found and the reasons as to why your accessibility score for the file may be high, low, or medium. And then lastly, the increase of accessibility, that's where you look at the alternatives that it has shown you as to how you can make that content more accessible. And you're able to use those to do that so that the final file that you re-upload is fully accessible. Okay, so I think now we can go and start with the activities. All right, so as you can see here, I'm on Blackboard, so maybe let me go directly to the home page. When you log into Blackboard, this is where you will land. From here, you can go to either your modules or communities to be able to engage with Blackboard Collaborate. In this case, I'll start with the modules. You'll be able to find a module example or one other that you have. It's also one thing that I should mention, by the way. For those of you who are interested during the session, I may be able to create such a module for you, which will be your own private module that you could use for practice, which is completely different from your active modules that you use for teaching. The reason why this is important is because you are able to maybe play around with the module itself when you want to upload content, share files, and things like that. So you're more comfortable in using that so you can replicate those activities within your live modules. So at the end, I will ask for those of you who are interested, I'll take your names down, I'll create these sites for you, and I will share them. So while you're in the module, this is generally the UWL Flex template that you will find. You will see that it has the announcements area and some of these main areas where you have your learning materials. That's where all of your content will be uploaded. Your module information, that would be your, what's this called? The information about the module itself, such as a section where you upload a module study guide, which explains about the module, assessments, what's expected of the student, learning outcomes, and so on and so forth, including the main communications for the module, such as heads of schools, heads of department, the module leader, the course leader, the module tutors, and finally, the school administrators. In the assessments area, they would find the assessments themselves, how they're designed, what's expected of the assessment, maybe the structure of the assessment, when they're due to take place, and so on and so forth. In Webinars Collaborate, this is where the Collaborate links will be created, and that's where I'll go into at the moment to show you how to create one. UWL Replay Recordings would be the Panopto feature, where it allows you to create your assignment folder for when you want to accept submissions for recording-based assignments, like a video or an audio file. It's also where the sessions that you'd normally be delivering on campus would normally be recorded within the classes that are UWL Replay enabled, and those recordings will be available for that particular module in this area, so your student would be able to access them for review at a later time. In the groups, this is simply where you can create groups for the module and or allow students to communicate in groups and take part in group activities, such as group assignments and so on and so forth. The reading lists is where they would find all the different content with regards to books, articles, and other forms of recommended and essential reading that the student would need to know about and or learn about so that they're familiar with the content in the module. My marks, this is available to students alone. For any one of you who are enrolled as staff, when you access this section, it will show that it's basically not for you. And if I was to show you, you would see that you do not have any personal marks. This is what you would see. But your student would normally see the full list of all assessments that they have, as well as the marks and feedback that you have awarded them based on the submissions for the assignments that they've made. The external examiners section, this is just a section through which you would upload content to share with an external examiner, generally just to show them and or explain what type of content, what the module is about, what type of assignments have been completed, maybe the requirements of the assignment, so it can help them for when they're helping you double mark or triple mark an assignment, for example. The staff help, this is a link that will take you to the staff guidance and provide you information as to how you can do some specific things within the different learning technologies that we have. Same for Blackboard Help, it's the same thing but for students. These other links here, these are ones I've added myself, and I will show you how to add these for when we'll be discussing the Blackboard section. The bottom here, we'll also be looking at when we are discussing the Blackboard part. So coming back at the top, under the Webinars Collaborate, this, once loaded, will show you this area. Now, there's one thing that you should keep in mind, which is when you access Blackboard and you try to view Collaborate and you simply see that initial screen you saw at the moment, where it's the purple loading screen, which often doesn't stop, it just goes on and on. That's usually because you have not shared what are known as third-party cookies. Now, to show you what that looks like, let me just go to it right now. All right. Sorry.
Sorry to disturb you. The empty trace there, are you finished with them now?
I am not sure, and I'm actually on a training, so thank you. Apologies about that. All right, so I'm trying to log into this. I don't know why it's taking ages. There we go. Okay, so within your web browser, you would go to the settings, and most of them would have the privacy and security area. But if you're unable to find that, that's absolutely fine. You could simply just search for it over here. So if I said cookies, for example, it would show me that there's cookies that I've found, and some of these are talking about clearing them and things like that. This example, by the way, is based on the Firefox browser, so you may see something different depending on the browser that you're using, but generally the steps would be the same. If I select custom and choose to block some of these, so currently I've selected that all of these are active, but if I said something like, actually, let me just disable all of them and then reload tab. So technically this means I have not accepted or allowed any cookies to be used. If I come back to Blackboard and go to modules, hopefully this time around it should not allow me to access the collaborate. But if it does, then we'll look at some other part. Okay. It appears it has, so let's see, this one, strict. Reload all tabs. Okay. All right, so all right, so it appears maybe they may have changed that option, so I would have to look into this further. But usually when you go to the settings area and view the third-party cookies or cookies themselves, you would be able to change the options not to allow cookies to be shared. And when that happens, that would mean the collaborate session is not fully loaded. You'll just see a continuous loading screen going on and on. And what that would mean is you would have to allow these options to be shared first before you're able to come back. I can't show you on this one. I would have been able to show you on Chrome, but because that's where this session is currently taking place, it would affect the session. But I will provide you the guidance that we have on the Teaching Hub as to how that can be done from the different browsers available, including Firefox. And hopefully with that, it would show you, just in case you have a similar problem or your student has one, then you'd be able to explain to them how they can resolve it. But anyway, once you're in the module and you have access Blackboard Collaborate, if the loading screen wasn't a problem, this is where you would land. From here, you would see at the top that you have what's known as a course room. This is accessible across any instance of a course, module, or community. It's basically a private room that's available by default for that particular site. In this case, the site that has my name technically. This is one that you can use as practice maybe with your students, that you could make available at all times, that they could use on their own for when they just want to test things or have general communications. However, there is some kind of a caveat to that. We have seen in the past that students often make a mistake, and instead of coming to the sessions like these, where the actual session would be taking place, where you'll be delivering your content, they would join into the course room. And as a result, they go and sit there for hours while you're delivering the session elsewhere, and that creates confusion. So as a result, we've been informing people just to lock the course room. And when you see this, when you see that it's locked like that, this means when a student wants to try and access it, they won't be able to. In that case, they'll only be limited to access the sessions here, which is where the delivery will be taking place. You also have the button to create a new session, which you'd obviously see one here and one at the middle, but the one at the middle would often appear if no other sessions are available at the moment. In the filter by, it allows you to view either sessions in range, where you can provide a specific number of dates from a start date to an end date, and this would filter the sessions that meet that requirement. This is generally useful if you have several sessions available or hundreds of sessions within that one module. You can also view previous sessions, which are any sessions that have taken place before, and then upcoming sessions, which are sessions that are taking place now or are due to take place in future. On the top left, you have the menu for which you could access the recordings. Any of the sessions that have been created and or recorded in the past, their recordings will be available here. If you see this message, this simply tells that it will show you any and all sessions of recordings that were made in the last 30 days. Which means if you're looking for a session or recording that was made much further than that, you'd have to use filter by, provide a date range, and give a date for when you know that session took place. So say back in 2020 in January, January 1st to date. In this case, it hasn't found any because this module is new and I've not recorded anything. But if I went to a module like this one, where I know there are dozens of recordings, including this session, which is taking place at the moment, where we are discussing. If I go here, select recordings, and provide the date range from sometime January last year, you will see a bunch of them. Now this shows you any recording you have, the date and time it took place, the duration of the recording. This access bit is fairly new. Anything that shows public means the recording is available to be accessed by link, which means if I select this option and I copy this link and I provide it to someone, it wouldn't matter whether they are a member of UWL, whether they're staff or student, they would be able to view the recording just like any other. Similar to how you'd see recordings shared on, say, YouTube, for example. It's open to anyone. The closed captions, this is just for captions that may have been created while the recording, while the session is taking place. In this case, none of them have closed captions. Any one of those that says course members only, this means the recording is only available to the members who are enrolled on the module. Now, you may ask yourself, what would happen if it says course members only and you simply share them that link? Would they be able to see it? That would depend. It would depend on one main thing. The course members only limits them to be able to only view the recording from within the module and within this particular link itself. So they would have to log into the module, go to the webinars, search for the recording, and then click on this to view it. Otherwise, if you simply provide them the link, even though they're logged into Blackboard and simply view the link in a different browser, it won't work. They would have to view it from the module itself. So this is the perspective as to how you can come and find the different sessions you have. Now, let's say you wanted to make one of these sessions public or course members only. To do that, you will simply select this recording options, select recording settings, and from here, you can either change the name, which is this extension at the end here. If I provide this a different name, then that will change as well. And from this, you would select that you want this to be public. Once you do that, now the recording is public. If I scroll down here and save, it's now changed. So that means the link shared for this particular recording will be accessible to anyone. And if I want to put it back, it's the same thing. Make it course members only, save, and now, like we discussed earlier, users would have to log into Blackboard, visit webinars, and click on the actual link of the recording, or select and watch now to be able to view it. They won't be able to view via a link. They're also able to download it, as you can see here. So if we go back in the session area, at the moment here, you'll see that there are two types of recordings. Oh, three types, sorry. The first one, it's open because it's in black and it shows that it's available. Available simply means that it's available to start to use, that it's open at the moment, it's not locked, it's currently taking place, but it's not, in most cases, it's not physically fixed based on dates and times. This one is an open-ended session, which I'll show you how to create in a moment. This session here, similar to all others, is a closed-ended session where you provide a specific start and end date. In this case, it's a date for today, and it starts from 10 to 1, and it shows in progress because it's the one we are currently using at the moment. So come 1 or after 1, it will disappear from there, and it will be part of the previous sessions, which we'll see some of those in a moment. The ones that say not yet started, these are sessions that are due to take place in future. In this case, 25th of August, for instance, and they're due to take place, say, between 10 and 11:30. And all others would be the same thing. Any session that shows not yet started cannot be used to access and or view the content. For example, if I open this, I won't be able to see the join now or access button. But if I open this one, I will see that it has that option. And from this, I can click to join the session or share the link with someone to access as an external member, as a guest, similar to how yourselves accessed this session. So how do we create one? To create a session while you're in Collaborate, simply select the option to create session. You'll provide a name. From here, you may want to allow guest access. This is if you want to invite people from external, those who are not enrolled within the module where the session is taking place, similar to what I've done in this particular session. So I may want to select that. By default, it will allow all users to join as participants. And this is what we recommend because the participants is the lowest level of access that one can have within the session. This is very important because if you have students joining in as presenters or moderators, they may be able to make changes on there that you may not want to happen. So it's better to leave it as participant and only change their access while they're in the session. And I'll show you that in a moment. Now, it may depend on what type of session you want to create. And like we said, there are three types. The first one is the open-ended session. This is the one that will start from the day you create it or the time that you've specified, and it will never end. It will always be available. Similar ones are these two that you see here, the open-ended session 2 or open-ended session. These were created since last year in 19th of October, and they are available to date. So here, for example, if you wanted to create a similar one, I simply need to select the no end or open session. The date for end date will now be disabled. I can specify the start date, so I may want it to start now at 10:48, for instance, and you would want to allow early entry. And the reason why this is important is it provides you and your students some time to be able to join the session and make any necessary changes that you need, like maybe check that your cameras and or audio are working so that when the time comes for you to participate, you're able to do that. It also allows you as an instructor enough time to be able to upload your slides, ensure that you have everything ready from when you want to start delivering the session. By default, it allows for 15 minutes, but it's often best to allow a bit more time if you think you may need more time. For instance, the sessions that we're taking place at the moment, I've allowed all of them to start 30 minutes before. You will provide a description, which is just explaining what type of discussion that they can expect to have within that particular session, though it's not compulsory, but it does help because it allows the students to understand what it is that they'll be discussing within that particular session. So here I'll just put if available. Before you save, you would go into the session settings. Here you'll find additional settings that you would need to set based on what you require. The default attendee role, again, it's set at participant. This is the one that will be activated from when someone selects the Join Now button, not the guest link that you would have shared with them. If they're a user on the module, they would have accessed the module, select the webinars collaborate, select the relevant session, and then selected the Join Now button. When they do that, these are the type of sessions that the type of roles they are awarded or assigned when joining the session. And like I said, we recommend this to be left at default. Blackboard would automatically provide access to participant level for all students, and anyone else with higher level access, like a moderator, an instructor or a marker, a teaching assistant, they would get moderator access. And the moderator access is the highest level, which allows you to do all sorts of things within the session, which we'll be looking at in a moment. You are also able to allow recording downloads. This is very important because it's the one that allows you to make the recording, make the session recordable and be able to record it while it's taking place for that recording to be available for students later. If you don't select this option, you will not have the option to record when you join the session. You may not want to anonymize chat messages, and we recommend this not to happen for two key reasons. The first of which is, if a student has asked a question, you would need to know who they are so that you may want to have a follow-up with them. If you anonymize them, you wouldn't know who they are. It will simply type anonymous. The other reason is if people know that you won't be able to find out who they are. Unfortunately, they may use that in a bad way, and they may say things or do things in the session that you may not want to happen. So it's best not to select that option. This is not really that important, but you may choose to allow this if possible, which simply limits anyone from the session not to be able to share an image of themselves, and that would only be left for the moderators and no one else. In the participant permissions, these you don't have to set them now because you still have the ability to change them while you're in the session. They simply allow you to allow the participant to be able to share their audio, video, chat messages, and draw on whiteboards. The telephony option is the one that allows them to join via their mobile phone instead of using a guest link or something else. It's like a number they call and they can join into the session. In some cases, we recommend this not to be enabled. And the main reason is because depending on the situation, it may actually charge them extra to join such a way. So simply disable this and only have them join either with a guest link or the the module itself via the Join Now button. The private chat, this is in case you want to supervise the individual messages that students have between themselves. For large sessions, if you're expecting to have 250 plus participants, then select this option. But one thing to note, the moment you select this option, these would be disabled because it won't allow the participants to be able to use these features if you have 250 plus people joining the session. However, like I said, you still have the ability to allow these options while you're in the session. In this case, however, they will still be blocked. So what next you'll have to do is change the role of someone to something higher, like a presenter, for example. Then they will be able to use the options. And lastly, we have the profanity filter. In case someone uses any profanity during the chat, it will automatically hide that and only show the other part of the message that's not profanity. Now, once you're happy with the session settings, simply go and create. Now the session is available here. From here, a user can then select it and then join the session. Now the other type of session is the close-ended session. So I'll name this as close-ended session. I'll set the individual dates, but now I will set an end date, let's say today, maybe around 12. I would leave this, say, at 30, provide a description if available. Here, I would leave that, select recording downloads, disable telephony, allow the profanity to be hidden, and go ahead and create the session. Now, what's different with this type of session is now it has a start date and a start time with an end date and an end time. So by the time it's 12:57, this session will no longer be active. That's the difference between an open-ended and a close-ended session. Then the last one is a recurring session. This one is one that will create multiple sessions within a grouped folder. So assuming you probably have several modules and you don't want to create individual sessions for each week, but you want to create one link and for it to be available for every single week automatically, then the recurring section would be useful for you. The only difference with that is you would set your start dates and times. So let's say I may leave this one at 2, for example. So it starts at 10:57, maybe tomorrow then. It starts tomorrow and it ends sometime tomorrow. But this time around, I select repeat session. Here, I can choose the type of frequency I want. Maybe I want this to repeat weekly. You can also select daily or monthly. You would say whether it's every week or every 2 weeks, 3 weeks. This is a pattern that you want it to have. So in the way we deliver our sessions at UWL, you may have 14 weeks of teaching, for example, and that would mean you want it to repeat every week, once a week, for instance. You may want it to happen every Wednesday, so you select that. You may also select the number of occurrences instead. If you select this as 13, then it will create 13 occurrences. Make any of them 30 minutes before. Provide the description. Here, we said we leave that as participant. Select this option to allow recording downloads. Disable telephony, allow profanity, and create. This time around, you see that it's a folder. If you open the folder, you will see a number of different sessions, each one taking a week after the previous one. They all have the same name, they will all have the same description, and they will all have the same settings. In this case, they all take place on a Wednesday, 1 week apart, and from 10:57 to 2:57. Just like that. So that means anytime you want to deliver a session to your students, they would simply just come and join one of these sessions based on the week that you're delivering. So that's how you can create an open-ended session, close-ended session, or a recurring one. Now let's say you have one of the sessions available that maybe you wanted to view the participants report for it, for when users already joined it. For that, you would go into the sessions you have. This time around, instead of showing all upcoming sessions, you would select all previous sessions. From these, you'd go to the session options, any one of them, and here you would select view reports. Now this would show you, this is the participants report. In this example, you'll also have here the polls. So if there are polls that were, that took place within this session, you are able to download them with this option. It will show you when the session took place, when it ended, the number of people who attended, the duration, and more. Click on View Report. You are able to see everyone who took place in that session, and you're also able to download either a printable document or a CSV file. And this way you would know who everyone was, how they joined. In this case, if it says integration, they joined from the module, from webinars, selecting the Join Now button. If it's guest, it will be the same way that yourselves joined via guest link. These joins would be the number of times they joined. So in case you experience some users who, dropped in and out of the session, then this number would be more for them only. So if the session has a poll, this doesn't have. If it has a poll, you'll see the drop down and you can select that option. It will download a CSV file, and if you open that, you would see that it has the poll results. So just like that, you'll see everyone, the question asked, the feedback they gave, and the time when they responded, just like that. All right, so now let's say you created your session, you joined your session, now you're in the session itself, so something like this. But because this will be slightly more confusing, let me use something new and I can show you from that one. Okay, so when you join the session, it will bring you here, and this will be the main input room of the Collaborate session. On the left, you have the session menu, where if you select Allow Recording Downloads, this option will be available. If you did not select it, then it won't be available. As a result, you won't be able to record. These are other options that you'd interact with Blackboard, maybe view their guidance, privacy policies, report issues, and more. To leave the session, you would select that option on the bottom left. In the middle here, this is your engagement. You are able to maybe tell how happy you are or something else. Now they've also added this, so you're also able to log out. If you select away, then it will automatically say you have left, and it will put that little yellow icon. So people would know not to expect you until you're back if you select I'm back. These are just showing feedback of how happy you are about the session itself. If you put something like surprised, then that feedback in the comments here, in the attendee panel, it will be available right at the top. You are able to share your audio, maybe video, and raise your hand if these options are allowed for you to do so. Now in this Collaborate panel, the first thing you'll see is the chat. In the chat, you're able to send messages, and there are different functionality that they've now added. For example, if I come back here where we have more of us, and I say at, this becomes a chat mention, and I can select any one of you and simply send this message to you and say hi. So then that message is only, it's tagged for Melanie, for example. So that's how you mention someone. In other cases, you may want to use formatting options. So you have the bold, italic, and underline. So you could say something like, yes, highlight this and make it italicized, make it underlined, make it bold, and it appears like that. You also have the option to use emojis for those of you who like these, maybe like a basketball, for example, just like that. So all of these features are now added within the Collaborate session. The other part is if you're sending individual messages to some of your members. Here, if you join in as a moderator, you will have this option. This is only available to moderators. Everyone is available to everyone else. But you also have the option to search for someone who you may want to message privately. For example, let's say in the participants panel, I want to message, say, Ria. I would say send a chat message, and I would say hello. So this message only goes to her, or him, sorry. If I open, you will now see that I have three options. One is with Ria, one is with moderators only, and the other one is with everyone. You're also able to search for someone like that, and it will show you the user, and you can select them and chat with them as needed. In the attendees panel, you will see all the different attendees who have joined the session. It will show you the groups. In this case, you'll see moderators at the top, then presenters, and then participants. Let's say you want to mute participants because they're talking too much and you want to have the room quiet. You could either You could either give the option to mute one person. Where is it? Oh, they removed it, which is very interesting. So now the option is only up here. You can mute everyone. Before you were able to mute only one person, but I think they removed that. If let's say someone is being noisy or problematic or troubling, you are able to remove them from the session. If you make them a moderator or presenter, it provides them high level access. So let's say I could make Abdul Hakim a presenter. So now he would have access to presenter access, like sharing files and things like that. You could also go back and make him participant or something else. You're also able to make one a captioner. And this is a bit different because it's the only way that you can accept captions within a Collaborate session, because someone has to physically type whatever they hear is being discussed within the session. And that's the only caveat. You also have the option to detach the panel. If you don't want to go in and out, if you select this option, the panel will appear at the end here. So if I close this, it will always be available. So I can see who I have with me within the session. And of course, you can put it back. So that's everything with the chat, the attendees panel, and now to the share content. Here, you will see primary content, secondary content, and interact. The primary content has a whiteboard. From this, you're able to type things. They've changed most of this in the last few days. It's very interesting. You can write if you've got a mouse, do stuff like that. Or if you could use this type option. And the same could happen with the attendees in the session. But that would depend if you've allowed them to do that. The share application or screen, this shows you the option of how you can share the different things you have. Because I'm using Chrome, I will see this layout, and I will also have the option to share a Chrome tab. Let's say I have one thing that's open that I would like yourselves to see and not everything else. Then I can simply change this and select something like this particular session here. I could select session audio, so share audio. This is very important if you're playing a video. Otherwise, your users who are attending the session may not be able to hear it. Once you've selected that, you can click on share. A window would be for any applications open on your machine. In this case, it's only showing me the Chrome browser, though I know I have open a few others. So in some cases, depending on the browser you use, the options for window may or may not all work. You may see a few or all of them, depending on the situation. Or alternatively, you could share the entire screen. I can only see okay, my apologies. It appears my thing cancelled. I'm putting that back now. All right, I think it dropped out for a second there, so the share options went off. But like we said, in case you missed the ones I said earlier, you're welcome. The ones I said earlier, the chat, you can mention someone, you can style something, you can also, share like what's this called, the emojis. Over here, you have the option to see the different attendees you have. You can set someone to a certain level of an attendee, maybe a presenter, and now you can see 3 groups. You could also put them back. You are also able to make someone a captioner so they can physically type captions. You can select them and send them a message privately. You could remove them from the session if you wish. If people are talking, you want to mute them, it will show you a mic like this. If it's black like that, that means sound is coming through and they're talking. But if it's quiet and just white, like that, then that would be they're not talking. But in case they are, select this option, mute all of them. You can search for an attendee if you have hundreds. You can detach the panel and have it to the side, and you can also put it back. And then in here, in the share content, you have the primary content, secondary content, and interact. In the primary content, you can share the whiteboard. And this is what happened earlier when I did this, the option came out. So I'll put it back now. You can also, there we go. You can also share camera, but this is just like my camera here, though I'm using this option. If I share this camera, then this entire box here will just be my face, which is not ideal. Then you have the option to share files. Here, you can clearly see that it tells you either drop an image, a PowerPoint slide, maybe a PDF, and that's it. But there's also limitations. If you upload a PowerPoint slide and the PowerPoint slide has animations like maybe text going all over the place, it has transitions and things like that, none of those will work because it will change the file into a PDF version or an image, and that will no longer be able to show you, what's this called? It will not be able to show you those animations. It will be the same thing if you do a PDF, it will just be the content. If you want the animations, you would either have to share your entire screen or share a Chrome tab if you have the file online, and I'll show you that in a moment. Once you have the file, you could select it and then share now, just like I did when we started the session. In the My Settings, the session settings, you are able from here to set your own image if you want to, but if you've blocked this from participants, then only moderators' images will be shown. In the audio settings, you are able to set how loud the speaker volume is for your own session on your end. The video quality, you can select this to either be in gallery view if you wish. This is also a new update they made just a few days ago. Notification settings, these are the notifications you see popping up. You could select whether it's collaborate, pop-up notifications, or audio, or something else. And these are for different things. In this case, for breakout groups, chat messages, whether you're mentioned in the chat, captioning, and if someone raises their hand. This mentioning in the chat and someone raises their hand, as well as the captioning, are new features they introduced a few days ago. The session settings. Now this is where we said earlier, you have the option to allow these options after the session is created. So while you're creating the session, you may have disabled them and you can allow them here. So if I remove this, you should no longer be able to see your microphone option on your end. And if I put it back, it should now be there. And of course, the rest is the same. This option is the same as what we saw earlier. You can limit only profile pictures for moderators to be shown and not anyone else. So most of those are main features within Collaborate. The one I mentioned about sharing stuff and how the animations can be shared is something like this, if I can find it. Tutorials, this one, for example. So if I download this for now, I'm going to open this in a new tab. And in Chrome, like we said, when you select share application or screen, so I'm going to disable this for now, and then select Chrome tab. As long as I have the tab open that I want to share, you should now be able to see the PowerPoint Online version or on my browser. From here, I can make this full screen, and I can use it just like I do on PowerPoint. So as you can see, the animations are coming through, no problem. If I go to the next slide, this slide has a video, if I'm not mistaken, or an audio, like that. So that's coming through as well. And if I go to another one, it should have an audio file. So we can see that those are coming through without a problem. Now, if I come back, and this time around, I'm going to share files and uploading the same file that I just downloaded, but I'm going to put it directly within this session. So I'm uploading that file, and once it's fully uploaded, I will select it to view whether it will be possible to play its contents. That was still the version online. I forgot to close it, but now it's closed. All right, so the PowerPoint slide is finishing to convert. Once it does, I will share the file and you will see the difference. All right, that's taking a few seconds, so I'll leave it for now. Okay, now it's done. Interesting. All right, sharing one of the slides now. And there we go. So like you can see, the animations are not coming through. It's simply just put all of the content on that same slide. If I go to the next slide, where there's a video, you'll see this big question mark. The video is not loaded. And the same thing for the audio, big question mark, because none of these animations and or other interactive features are supported within Collaborate. So if you want to have those, either share the entire screen and then play them from within PowerPoint, or upload the file online, share the Chrome tab, and then play it from the PowerPoint online, just like I showed you earlier. So I'll go back to sharing the screen. All right, now we will proceed to Blackboard. Now, like we said, you are able to do a few things in Blackboard: create assignments, communicate, accept assessments, do marking, feedback, and all of that. Now, the first clear thing that you would see when you open a module, course, or community, you will see the announcements area, which is this. This is one of the options for communication within Blackboard. You can select create an announcement, make example announcement. You can provide descriptions if you have those. This is obviously the information that you want to give to your students as far as that announcement is concerned. You can set it to have maybe date restrictions that you want it to be available to students for a specific time. This is part of managing visibility. So if I select date restricted, I could say display after. So today, maybe let's set it around 21, and I will show you what that looks like. This option, whether selected or not, as it says here, students will still be notified. So you could just leave that if you want to. And then if you're happy with that, the course link option is not really, important. It won't make much of a difference. You could just proceed to submit. When the announcement is created, currently, as you see here, it says item is not available. And then it simply says posted on, and it put that future time, which is 11:21. But right now it's 11:20. So when a student logs in, so if I go here into student preview, you will see that that announcement is not visible to me. If I exit, now it would be. So any one of these that shows that it's not available, students will not be able to see that. Once it gets to 11:21, then this announcement will be available to them. You also have the option, of course, to edit or delete it as you see fit. Then you have the learning materials. Now this is where you'll be creating the content following the UWL Flex approach. The learning materials are all of the content that you'll be using during your weeks of learning. In this case, I have a few examples. I've put like a week 1 folder, a week 4, and a week 5. To create these, you simply go to build content, select a content folder to start, and create this as example week. But obviously that will be the description of what it is that you're expecting to teach your student for that particular week. You would give a description to describe the content stored in the folder and the format if possible, so that your students would know what it is that's within that folder. Maybe they can expect a video, maybe a little quiz in there, some files, that kind of stuff. I'll show you a full example of one of the templates and how that would appear. And using that example, it will show you how you can create your own later. You're also able to use to permit this to users. So let's say if I say no for now, you'll see what that looks like. You may want to track views or not. This is just showing you how many people and how many times have accessed that particular content. So if you have a very specific thing that's important and you want to know if someone has viewed it, you may want to track views. And of course, we already saw the date restrictions for display after. It will simply say, show this item after a certain date. And if you put display until, it will be shown until that time and then removed from the student's view. So if I go and submit this, the file should now appear at the very end. So I can drag this and put it at the top. If it goes any faster. There we go. So as you can see here, it says availability, item is hidden from students. So if at any time your student says, oh, they cannot see something that you know you've uploaded, then first of all, check the icon. If it's lighter, this is much darker, this is lighter, then that's one hint. The other is this message. If you see that message, then it's not available to them. To make it available, simply select the drop down and simply make available. And that's it. Now it's available to them. If I go into this folder, you'll see here that I've created an item. I've attached a file, I've given it a name and a description. To do that same thing, you would go into the folder you want, select the build content, and now select an item, video, audio, depending on what you want to create. So I may want to create an item. I would give this a name, something like investigate, and that's following that UWL Flex approach. The reason why I'm creating this as an item and not a folder is maybe I'm anticipating not having too much content for this one thing. I may have a lot of descriptions for it, but not actual content that I want to attach. Then in that case, an item is fine. But if you have multiple items as well as a few descriptions to add, then it's better to create a folder, like for investigate, and within that folder, put all of the content that's relevant to it. And that creates a good hierarchy of content. Same here. You'll provide a description for this element. That text obviously is too small, so you can highlight it and make it slightly larger, so it's more visible. You can add attachments if you see fit. This could be in your content area, in your cloud service like your OneDrive, or just local files if you want to upload from your personal computer. So say I upload that one. So now it's attached. I can provide it a different name to be used for the link. Example of PowerPoint slide, let's say. And of course, we've already seen these to permit users to track views and to restrict access. And you proceed to submit. Is it not going through? Oh, there we go. So you can now see that the item is there. So if I was to show you an example from a UWL Flex template, if I can find one, say something like this one, I think. If we go into the learning materials, scroll all the way down, so you would normally see something like this. So this is a content that has been created by some of the other lecturers delivering this module. They have their individual weeks. They've given each week a name, the type of content to be discussed. They're trying to describe what content that particular week is going to talk about. And within that content, they would show the files themselves. In this case, for Investigate, they've got multiple contents, so they may have created a folder for it and inside it, but in this case, they've done it a bit incorrectly. They've created a folder but not put any content inside. So technically what they should have done was to create that particular folder like that, and then put any of these files that are related to Investigate within that particular folder. In Apply, they have provided a few videos that the student would need to look at. And finally, in Consolidate, they've given them, say, a PowerPoint slide to review based on the content that's being shown. So in that approach, you would have the Investigate, Apply, and Consolidate following the different reasons that we discussed at the very beginning of the session. So going back, we've seen creating an announcement, we've seen learning materials. Now say you want to create an assessment, for example, that would be in assessments, but it shouldn't be in the learning materials, it should be in the assessments area. So here you can create either test, survey, or assignment or something else. In this case also a Turnitin assignment. If you go to the test, if you have any assignment that's available that has not yet been deployed, we will see what the deploying is. That will be available here if it hasn't been deployed yet, but if it has, it won't be visible. You could either use that one if it's the one you want to use, or alternatively, you could proceed to create a new one. If you create, you provide the test name, maybe something like text example. You provide a description of the test. You may provide instructions that the student would need to know. Maybe it would take place for an hour and a half. You only have one attempt, things like that, just like a normal exam of that normal test sheet, so they know what's expected of them for that particular test. So you'll provide this as well. Like we said, we can make this larger because the text is fairly small. Once you're happy with that, you proceed to submit. Then you're redirected in this area where you can start creating the questions. If you go here and select these are all the type of questions available. Now I have an example test that has all of these questions so they can show you what they look like when they're created. I will share that with you at the end of the session or after the session is completed, so you just have that for yourself. I'll show you how to upload one when it's available. In this case, I may want to create something like fill in the blanks, for example. I'll provide a question title, that's the question text that's required. This is the actual text that the student would read about the question. You provide your answers. You may want it to be case sensitive, so select that option. You could select maybe 2 answers, for example, and that will provide you answer 1 and answer 2. You can select whether it contains only or pattern match or exact match, whichever one that's, that would make sense for the type of assessment that you're creating. You may want to provide response feedback. If you want this to be an automatically marked test, you can provide that for a correct answer and that for an incorrect answer. And when the student submits, it will automatically mark them and give them feedback based on the answer that they've provided, whether it's correct or incorrect. The categories, this is when you have like other questions that you want to add, or those that you've grouped in different categories, so you could add them, but I don't have any at the moment, so it's not needed. You may add notes for yourself or for maybe another instructor who may be a second marker for a test. And if you're happy, you could either submit and create another question within this, or if it's just only one question that you need, you can just proceed to submit it. And that makes it available. You can set the number of points that you want, which will show you the total of them here, as well as the total number of questions you have. Say you're happy with everything there, you just proceed to say OK. So now you have the test example available. You just proceed to submit that. Then here you can provide additional descriptions if needed. You could show the description to the test, to the students if you set the descriptions to begin with, as well as the instructions, which are these that we set earlier. You may want it to open in a new tab, allow students to make it available to students so that they can actually see it. For now, you may want to say no, so you can only show them when they need to see it. You may want to add an announcement so they know that a new test has been added. You may want to allow multiple attempts, either unlimited or a specific number. So if you say something like 2, that means they can take the test once and then the second time, and it's only the second attempt that will be taken for marking if you select last marked attempt, which is there by default. Force completion will force them to complete it before they submit. Set a timer. It would allow you to set how long the test can be completed. So maybe it should take around 30 minutes instead of 60. If you set auto submitters on, once the timer runs out, it will automatically submit whether they've completed it or not. You can set the display after and display until options, which means up here, I could set this as yes. And then if I set this as display after 11:31, then let's say on the 18th, so tomorrow or next week, the 25th, that means it's only after 11:31 on this date that the test will be visible to the students. If you set a password, they would have to provide a password to join in. So something like cookies, and it's case sensitive. You may want to assign this to a specific group or user who may need like additional assistance, like students who need extra time, maybe they're dyslexic or something else. So you could add exceptions. So for example, you select a user who may need that exception. Instead of them having only a half an hour, maybe give them 45 minutes so they get an extra 15. You may not want to force them to complete. You may probably want the auto submission, and you may also allow them a bit more. So you're changing these options for only this user, where everyone else would use the options above. That's how the exceptions work. And then of course you could set a due date, maybe 31st, and a time. You may not want to allow students to use it to access the test once the due date has passed. So you could select that. Allow this test to be used in the grade center calculations. It will be part of the final grade of the module. So select that one if it's going to be used for that purpose. If it's simply something just to go through like a consolidate thing where it's not probably marked, then you don't need to select this option. Down here, you can select the options to give feedback to the students at what time. After submission would mean the moment they've submitted the test, they get their feedback immediately. Maybe you don't want that. If it's something marked for the actual module as the final grade, then you may say on a specific date, for example, and then specify the date, which would probably be after you've done your marking. So say it's something like 17th of September. You may want to show all answers, both correct and the ones they've submitted. You may want to give them the feedback and also show them incorrect answers, just so that they have all the information at hand. Then the presentation to prohibit plagiarism in case you have students sitting in the class. You could say prohibit backtracking, which will select the option to show one question at a time. And if you select the option to randomize questions, by the way, the prohibit backtracking would be if a student has submitted question 2 and move forward to question 3, they won't be able to go back and change the question 2. Once it's submitted, that's it. The randomized questions, if you have, say, 5 questions, maybe my question 1 will not be the same as the one sitting next to me. Their question 1 would be my question 5. And that would be good, because if I copy from them, then I would get it wrong, obviously. So if you're happy with those options, you proceed to submit, and that's it. So the test is now created at the very end. It's right there. The test I mentioned earlier that has all examples available is this one here. So this is the one that I will share with you that has all example questions available, and you will see what those questions look like for when you're creating a quiz. Then the other forms of communication within Blackboard would be the discussions, which none have been added here, but that's okay. To add like some of these other links I've done, first of all, you need to make sure that you have edit mode on. The reason why that's important, if I disable it, you will see these options to create group, the buttons here. If I go to announcements, I can't create an announcement, even though I'm enrolled as a module leader or as a lecturer. So if I set that on, now the options are available. So I would come here, I would select a tool link, I'll provide it a name, and then I would select the type that should be used. In this case, I'm looking for a discussion board. Making it available to users will mean it's available to students. But if I don't select that at the moment, you'll see the difference just now. So I'll submit this, and it'll appear right at the bottom. So anything that has this little box with an arrow is currently not available to students. To make it available, simply select this option and then say show link. And now the link is here and it's available. So when you open, you can create a new forum or a new discussion board, something like peer-to-peer support. Provide a description to explain what students should be discussing in this particular discussion board. Make it available to them. You may want to limit it at a time. If you do, then you can set the display after and display until dates. If you want to use it as an assessment, then you could set it for marking, whether it should be added in Grade Center, and more other options. Allowing subscriptions and a few other options, as you see here, would be based and depend on what exactly you want this particular discussion forum to have. But if I leave this as the defaults, then I'm happy with all of that. I can proceed to submit. And now I have it available. So anytime a student comes in and they post something, we can see the number of posts and the number of people who are taking part within that post. And from there, they're able to communicate. By opening that, creating a thread or a subscribe to something, and if I say here, hello everyone, for example, I provide a message. This is an introductory message, and make the text bigger. I don't want to attach anything, but if I wanted to, then I could. If I submit, and now it shows that I'm the author, I've submitted hello everyone, and people can now open this and they can reply and do more. So that's another form of communication. The last one is available down here in the course management. When you come to the send email area, you could select that what type of user group you want to send the email to. In this example, you could send it to all users or to a specific group or teaching assistants only, students only, instructors, and so on and so forth. If I select all users, it will show you every single user enrolled within that module and the person from whom this message is coming from. You can provide a description. So an example, email, provide a body of the email. If you select this option, then a copy of that email will be sent to yourself as well, just in case. You may also want to attach a file if you have one. So if I do an example and select that same file from before, and I proceed to submit, the email should be sent. Once successful, I would then receive a message telling me that that email has gone through. It's taking its time now. All right, while it does that, let me open another tab and we can continue. Okay. All right, so we have seen communicating, uploading content, creating materials. We have seen assessments only from Blackboard, particularly the quiz. We have seen the collaborate when we discussed collaborate earlier. We've looked at most of the other stuff. Now we're going to look at the submissions. When a student goes into the module and selects assessments and they've submitted to it, all of their attempts would be available under course management, grade center, and either one of these. If it's a test, then you can see them under tests. If it's assignments, then here. If you select full grade center, then you'll see both. I'll go to select this one just in case so you can see all of the different assessments I have. From here, I'll be able to scroll through to see all of the assessments available. In this example, if you see that little exclamation mark, that means it's an attempt that was made and it now is available to do marking with. So you need to mark this. You can just select it, and then do view, mark attempt. And from here, you will see that the attempt from the student, whatever it is that they've submitted, you would mark them as needed. You may provide them the points that they have accumulated based on what they've submitted. You may want to give them feedback. If you see this message, this is because of the test question settings that you may have set. Maybe you have not allowed those comments to be shown, but you can change them as it shows you here. And once you do, then the comments will be available. But say if I try to make this something like 6 out of 10 and say, not a bad attempt, that's the feedback. Proceed down here to submit. It should now set it to 6, that this student for this particular assessment, they've got 6. And that's how you would do marking, particularly for quizzes and other stuff. If it's an assignment, you can also choose to view this only assignments or only tests. So if I selected tests only, these are all the different tests available, some of which have not been attempted, which is fine. If I go to assignments, then I will see the assignments, if any, and this is only one, and no attempts have been recorded. Now, from here, since we're still in Blackboard, we might as well look at Turnitin before we continue elsewhere. If you go back to assessment, you will see these are examples of Turnitin assignments I created previously. To create one, you will select assessments and Turnitin assignment. Often we use the paper assignment instead of peer mark. So in this case, I'll just leave it as paper, which is the one that would expect them to submit a document, something like a report or something else of the kind. All right, so it appears that email was sent. And if I was just to show you what that looks like, just going to open my email here and quickly access and show you what the email would normally look like when it's delivered. Okay, so if I go here, you'll see that I have a new email, and if I open, I'll see that's the message, and it has the attachment. It's not yet loaded, but it will come soon. It will show you all the recipients who received the message that were provided, and in a moment, once it fully loads, there we go. That's the attachment that we made. So this is what anyone from the module would receive if you send the message or the email from within sent email within the module. All right. So back to the assignment in Turnitin, we'll provide a name. assignment 1 test. Start date, the due date, and the post dates are very important because the start date will determine when the assignment is available to start accepting submissions. The due date is when the last available date for submissions is. So let's say if I say in this case 24th of August at 11:59 p.m. After that, no more submissions can be accepted unless I've selected to allow that option in the optional settings down here, which we'll look at in a moment. The post date, this we recommend to be the 15 working days after the due date, because that's usually the maximum time available for staff to do marking and provide feedback. So if you select this icon, you can provide a new date. So I could go to September and say 23rd, maybe at around whatever time that may be, maybe 5 p.m., let's say. Point value, though optional, it just makes sense though to provide the full value that you'd be marking the students against. So when they see their grade, they would see normally something like 50 out of 100. If you want the Turnitin to be able to generate similarity reports, then select this option. If you select any file type, it will accept additional file types that don't generally generate Turnitin similarity reports. And what that means is you won't be able to see the similarity and or sources from where the student may have found the content that they've submitted. So in case they've copied or plagiarized, you won't be able to identify that. If you select this option, then you will. Under the optional settings, you could provide a description or an instruction for that particular assessment. And this is recommended so that then the student would know what it is they're submitting for. If you want to accept submissions after the due date, then you could select this option to yes. It will take the submission, but if it's after the due date, then it will be marked as late. So you would know that that student has submitted after the fact. The similarity report, you may want this to be generated, which of course you do, because then you want to know the similarity and also allow the student to see whether they can make their documents better, just in case additional sources have been identified that possibly they may have plagiarized, so they can make the necessary changes needed. Generate reports for submissions. You should allow this to say immediately and can overwrite reports until due date. The reason why is because this means it would allow them multiple submissions as they go along. If you only say final report, the first report is final, the moment they submit once, that's it. They won't be able to submit again. So if they identify a problem, submitted the wrong file or high similarity, and they want to resubmit a revised document, they won't have that option. On due date simply means it will only generate the report after the due date, which in most cases it defeats the purpose, because then the student would need to know beforehand in case they have high similarity so they can make changes. So it's always best to leave it as immediately, can overwrite report until due date. This bibliography, quoted materials, small sources, these three are mainly related to the similarity report itself. The bibliography materials, that's mainly for your references and other stuff, which may not necessarily mean that they've plagiarized. So you may choose to exclude that. So if you leave that as yes, then that's fine. The quoted materials is any materials that have been surrounded with quotes, if it's a direct quote from somewhere. Sometimes if you select that to be excluded by saying yes, we have seen in previous situations where students have put quotations around text and maybe changed the quotations color to white so they're visible to the naked eye, and most of the content within the document is not found or is not captured as similarity or copied somewhere. So if you select this as no, then any quoted text would be found, and if it's not properly or correctly referenced and cited, then you can clearly identify that that's a plagiarized text, and you can mark them accordingly. The small sources, that's just any text that has small piece of information that may have been found from a different source elsewhere. Allow students to say similarity reports, yes. Reveal grades to students only on post date. You would need to leave this as yes, because During the 15 working days as you mark, if you've not selected this option, any grade you provide a student, they would be able to see it. And that's when you may receive a bunch of emails, people saying, oh, I've seen this grade, I'm not happy with it, and stuff like that. And that would not be ideal, particularly because you may not have had the opportunity to discuss with a different colleague or have the submissions double marked. So it's better to leave this option as yes. So only on post date or after would they be able to see their grade and feedback. Anonymous marking, some courses do use this. This means you won't be able to know who has submitted that particular document, mark them fairly, and only after the submission would those names be revealed. The only problem here, however, is that sometimes we have seen it in the past that this may just automatically set itself to yes. And when that happens, if the submissions are accepted as anonymous marking, it will not allow you to disable the option for all of them at once, especially if submissions are already made. You would only be able to do that for each and every individual submission at a time. And this is when you're marking. But once you're finished marking, maybe during your post date and further, then everything is revealed. The Submit Papers to option. This is a repository or a database where the documents a student would submit are stored. Now, there's usually this discussion related to the similarity report. Let's say you may want to allow your students to submit multiple copies as they go along because they may want to check similarity, and if they see it's high similarity, come back and resubmit a revised document. But if they do that, if this option has selected standard paper, institution paper, or student's choice of repository, any one of these three, then every time they submit a new copy, the similarity will be found from the previous submission they made. So if you want them to have a space where they can do similarity checking without it affecting anything, it would only make sense to create a new assignment and have that named something as draft or similarity check or something like that, and have it set to no repository, so that every time they submit to it, it will check similarity based on these options, but every copy they submit will not be saved anywhere. So finally, when they're happy and they come to submit the final document, you would have another assignment set to one of these options. The standard one is the default. If you select that, then they submit to it, then that's the correct submission. Then in future, if they submit elsewhere, because they've already submitted before, they could identify it at that time. But if that concept's a bit confusing, I understand it can be for first-time users. I will leave that for questions later, or if you could email Expert Academy, and I'll come back to you with additional support if needed. Finally, down here, you have the options for attaching the rubrics or the grading forms. If you have any of those available, they'll be available down here. We should all have the option for this, which is the base template example that's available to all staff, just to show you what it looks like. But in most cases, because this is for the College of Nursing and Midwifery, it may not be the type that you would need for your assessment, so you'd need to create one of your own. And to do that, you would have to click on the Launch Rubric Form Manager, select these three dots, and either create a rubric or a grading form, provide the necessary information, and then use that and attach it to your assignment. If you already have one created on your own machine and you want to upload it, you would select this option and go to Import, find the file, and submit it here. If it's correct, then it will automatically upload correctly. If you want an example, you could just download this one and then edit it with the information you need, and then re-upload that one using this way, so that you would have the correct file with the information that you need for when you're doing marking. So I will close this one and continue. So once you're happy with all of those settings, so as you can see, I've not set any rubric form at the moment, which is fine. I'll just proceed to submit. This is just a message, just say okay. When you see this message, the assignment is correctly created, and it should be available at the bottom, which is this one down here. Your students can then come to this and make submissions. Now, like we said earlier, there may be cases when a student may have some hardship submitting to the assignment. If that's the case and you need to submit on their behalf, you can either come to the link to this assignment and simply click on View Complete. This will give you the form to submit on the student's behalf. The first thing you do, change the author to the student in the module. So check their names and the student ID to confirm that they're the right person. This will automatically pre-populate. Provide them a title. What we usually do if we submit on their behalf, we say submitted on behalf of student, maybe, and usually add something like Expert Academy. So yourself as a lecturer would know that the student probably contacted us and that we did this on behalf due to whatever reason. When you click on this option, it will show you the requirements of what you can submit or cannot submit on the other hand. Maximum file size 100 megabytes. Contents must have at least 20 words of text, written text, and this is for when you're submitting or checking for similarity. If the text is like an image, so if I take this screenshot and upload this as an image or document and submit that, it will not read it as text, it will read it as an image, so it will not be accepted. There has to be some form of written text, at least 20 words or more, for that to be able to generate similarity. Otherwise, it will not be accepted. Maximum file size 800 pages, and of course, these are the file types. From there, you could just proceed to submit, find the file that you're trying to submit to, something like this one, upload. When successfully uploaded, then it will appear on the student's submission as this on the student's account as their submission to this assignment. So once we've confirmed that, and there we go. Now, in some cases, students may not receive a digital receipt to confirm that they've made the submission if you do it on their behalf. So we actually recommend that you take a screenshot of this and email this to them as the evidence that they've submitted the document. On the other hand, if they do it themselves, then you don't need to do that because Turnitin will automatically send them the digital receipt for their reference. So if you return to the assignment inbox, you will now see that their submission attempt is there, and it shows 100% similarity because I've submitted the same document over and over again over the last few weeks, and it has found the same document elsewhere. And if you click to open that, this will open into the Feedback Studio, which is where you would come to do your marking. The first thing you will notice, if I go back and I select the text instead of the similarity, it will not highlight anything. It will just show me the document that the student has submitted. On the left here, you have this first section, which is the instructors section. You would see that you can provide your comments after you've done your marking. If you attached a rubric or grading form, it will be available here. In this example, I didn't, so it will show that none is available. This is the part for similarity checks and where sources have been found. In case anything has been flagged as some kind of hidden text, replace characters and other stuff, it will be shown here. The similarity index will show where the file may have been submitted. And if I select that, I can see here that it has been submitted somewhere, like colleague Serger, I think. If I open that, I can, in this case, it's submitted to a different institution. That's why it's requiring me to provide some information so that institution will be informed. But if it was submitted within UWL, as a member of UWL, you'll automatically see the document where that has been found, and you can compare the similarity content. And of course, the rest here is just to show you other additional sources that it may have been submitted elsewhere. Like this is University of Leicester, Queen Mary, and so on and so forth.
It's 12 hours.
So you're able to maybe download the file if you select this option here, either the current view, which shows the similarity highlights and everything, the digital receipt, which is the copy showing that they've made the submission, and or the original file that the student has submitted. When you're doing your marking, you could, in some in areas, maybe highlight a portion and then provide a comment. So that would be like your in-text feedback. You're providing part of your feedback within the text itself on the document. Alternatively, once you want to provide the overall feedback for everything, you can just provide that feedback like that. When you're ready to provide your, in another form, by the way, you can also provide voice feedback up to 3 minutes. And if you're ready to provide your final the final grade, you simply assign it here, something like 0, because the student, copied everything. And also provide them anything that's obviously relevant based on whatever it is that they've submitted. If you have multiple students, you can simply select these options here to move to the next submission and continue marking. So that's with Turnitin. And the next thing we'll be looking at is UWL replay. So I'll go to Home on Blackboard, scroll down slightly and select Show All in this relevant links, and then UWL replay. Now this is our lecture capture system where all of the different content would be copied from when you deliver sessions on campus for the rooms that are UWL replay enabled. Any and all sessions recorded within this platform would be available in the relevant module folder for the module that you've delivered within that particular room. Students will be able to access those recordings from within that module folder directly in the module within Blackboard. When you come to this option or to this page, you have the option to download UWL replay, and this is when you want to use it to create recordings directly from within your machine. This is your own personal machine at home. The ones at university, they already have UWL replay pre-installed. Depending on the type you're using, so under here in Panopto, select one of those options, whether you're using Windows 8.1 32 bits or 64, alternatively for Mac. Once you've installed that, you would have then the option to start creating by simply going to this button and then launching. Because I'm using Mac, it has identified, so if I select Panopto for Mac and then launch Panopto, I will accept and simply say open. This will log me in and it will automatically add my account onto the system. So as you can see, I'm now completely logged in. And from here, I can now start setting where I want to create the recording and upload. If I turn this on, I can use the camera of my device to be captured so that my video is also available if I wish to. Ensuring that your microphone is accessible, you should see these bars as you speak or make any sound. That means that's being captured as well. If you're using slides and you want those to be captured, make sure these are selected. For Mac users, you may probably be using Keynote, but I personally use PowerPoint, so that's selected there by default. The built-in display here, the source, that would be in the secondary option, that would be the screen itself, as you can see. I can also select something else that I want this to be maybe a camera or a webcam or some other form or device that should be captured as part of this. Alternatively, I could set that additional source as a secondary device. You'll provide a title. By default, the title would be the time and date as a timestamp from when you started or requested for the session to be created. But in this case, obviously that's not user-friendly. So you'll provide it something like a name, maybe session 1. Practice using UWL learning technologies. In the folder, the usual default is that it would set it to my folder or any other folder you may have selected. Now, if you want to put it in a different folder that you have access to, simply select that and then find where else you want to put the file. So maybe I want it to be in my folder under, say, Blackboard videos, so it will go there. And then if I start to record, you should see a timer here showing me that it's now recording. So everything I'm now discussing is being created as part of the recording, and that will then be added into the recording and uploaded online. Once that's uploaded, then anyone who has access to the Blackboard videos folder in my folder, they'll be able to access it. But one thing to note is that the my folder within Panopto, that's private to you. Other people cannot access that. So unless you choose to share the videos directly, which I'll show you that in a moment. So if I proceed here to say stop, you will ask me to confirm, maybe provide a description if available, like that, and then upload. Now the video is uploading. Once it's fully uploaded, it will be available to view online, and I'll show you that in a moment. So now it's uploaded, so I'll close the Panopto. And if we go back, and this time go to my folder, and then the Blackboard videos, you'll see that here's the session that's currently being processed. If you see it like this, it's not yet accessible to view. Once it's shown in this blue color, then you know it's available to view. All right, so while you're within the module, you have access directly to UWL Replay, but for that specific module folder. So if I open this one, for instance, and go to UWL Replay recordings, as long as I can see this screen, that means this module has a folder on replay. I can select from here to record. And if I do that, the folder, it will no longer say my folder, it will select this specific folder. So I don't have to change it. If I want the video to appear here, it will automatically come to it. If you want to create an assignment folder, one like this one, it should have assignments at the end. Let me find a module where none has been created. Not that one. Maybe this one. All right. Now, while you're in the module, you go to the UWL Replay section and you select the gear icon to open the settings. When the folder settings come up, you should see this link down here. Simply select Create Assignment Folder, and a new folder will be created with the same name as the main folder, with the exception of assignments at the end. Once you see that, then you know the assignment folder is successfully created. If I close this, this folder should appear here as a subfolder. Now all I need to do is direct students enrolled on this module to come to it and simply upload their recordings here. Now, like I said earlier, you may have video-based submissions. Maybe you want students to create a short introduction of themselves so they can share with other students, and they want to upload that. Maybe they record it on their phone. So they would select Upload Media, and from here, they would click and find a video that they have. That may be an actual video or an audio file. I could put these ones, but these are very large, so they'll take a long time. So maybe let me try and find something else. All right, I'll upload an audio file instead. So I'll select that one and upload. So this, you should not close this window until this completes, and you should see a message like that. When you see this message, then you should close or click away. If you do that while it's still uploading, then the upload process will not be completed, and you would not have uploaded anything, and you'd have to do the process all over again. So now if I click out, you will see that here's the video that's being currently submitted. So that's the process that your student would normally go through to submit into the assignment folder within Panopto for your module. In case you or they want to share the recording, they simply hover on the recording and select the share button. And then from here, they can copy the link and share this link with someone. Depending on the type of access the link has, In this case, it says only specific people and groups. They could change this and maybe say unlisted within the organization or within the organization. This would mean anyone at UWL will be able to access the recording. The restricted access would make it that the video is only available to the people enrolled on this module. If the video is within the assignment folder, like we introduced earlier, it will not be visible to the other students on the module, but it will be visible to the lecturers on the module. It's just like any assignment on Blackboard or Turnitin. If you make it public, whether unlisted or normal, it would mean that it's available outside of UWL, just like how you see a YouTube video or something else. When you share the link with anyone, they're automatically able to access. So that's how you can go about sharing files. Then something else. There's also the matter of subscriptions, which is this tab over here. If you subscribe to a folder or to someone, so say you came to my account, say something like Mri. So if you came to my account like this and then select the subscribe button, what this will mean is anytime I upload a video in this folder, you will get a message. It will inform you. And you will also be able to view all of the recordings I've uploaded in this section here. That just makes it easier for you later when you want to quickly access the materials from someone that you have subscribed to. The same happens for literally anything on Panopto. It could be subscribing to a respective folder, whether it's a module, course, or community, or someone's folder, or you can even subscribe to like tags and other stuff. Anything related to that content, you will be notified, and that will automatically be available in the subscription section. So in Panopto, we've looked at accessing Panopto, creating the assignment folder, uploading content, sharing the content. We've seen subscriptions, we've seen uploading media, and also creating a recording from using the Panopto installer, which is downloadable from here. All right, so far we've seen Collaborate, Blackboard, Turnitin, and Panopto. The next we'll be looking at is CampusPress. To access CampusPress, you go back to Blackboard in the home page, and under the relevant links, show all, you would select CampusPress. You would log in from the top left-hand corner by providing just your username, unlike in Blackboard where you provide, or Porto, where you provide your username email. Here you only provide the username and the password, and then submit. One thing I should clarify, however, is that the CampusPress is only accessible to users with emails that end with uwl.ac.uk, meaning any partner institution members who do not have such an email, unfortunately, you will not be able to use CampusPress. So when you come to CampusPress, by the way, apologies, let me use a different account. Not that one. Okay, so let me log in differently. There is another way to log in. I don't have to go to Blackboard. I could simply type campuspress.uwl.ac.uk and it will take me to the page directly. If I go to login and this time use a different account, there we go. Once you're logged in, if you don't currently have any site, you will only see following and create site. You won't see my sites because you don't have any. So you'd select create site and proceed to select a template and so on and so forth. I will show you that from within. Now currently I have two site examples. If I select that link, it will show me the two sites I have, but I also have the option to add a new site. Now in your cases, if you go to the create site, you would be able to see this page where you can provide a site name. So maybe I could say my student ID and say test site. This is a test site. Don't make it public unless needed. Usually we leave this as only registered users. And what that does is it will only allow people who are logged into Campus Press, so UWL members, to be able to view the site. Otherwise, you may make this available to anyone but provide a password, so they will only be able to log in if they're able to provide the password. You would select the template. For those who may need to use this for their personal blog, so you could select any one of those blogs available. The default one here is just the default blog. If you wish to use that, you can. However, if you're creating a class blog, you would create this template. The other templates, as you can see, they're there for specific courses, for specific purposes. So this may or may not be applicable to you. So for now, I will leave this as a main template, and then I will proceed to create the site. When I see this, now this is available, I can click on it to start copying the content. What this is now doing is it's going to clone the template I've selected to give me the content and make it available. Now the site is available, so it will redirect me to the dashboard. And from here, I can view the site by clicking on Visit Site. And this is what I see. If you want to edit the content of the page, let's say you want to change the name, you will simply, while you're in the site, simply select Edit Page. And then you will be redirected to the page or area where you can make the changes. In this case, you can give it a title, so something like Risho's test site. The Add Media area is where you can upload files and other content that you may want to attach to your site. So if I do that, because at the moment it's a new site, so there's nothing, I can upload new content. So I can select files. I can go to, say, my downloads, and maybe I would select that one and this one and this one maybe, and I upload. So all three files are now uploaded. I'll select the one I want. Once I know it's selected, once this one, okay, I will have it selected like that, and then I would select Insert into Page. And there we go. So the text, that little highlight, if I change this to something bigger so it's more visible, you will see that that's the file itself. You may provide name or content, something like this is a test site. Please ignore. So here you're typing the information that will be displayed on the page itself. If you're happy, you could preview the changes to see what it would look like. So you'd see that's the title, that's the file, and this is the message. If you're happy with that, you just come over and update. So now the page is created. If I view the page again, because as you can see, it says page updated, it's now different from before. It has the new content that we've recently added. To change this site, for example, this information, you'd have to go into the changes area, something like the settings here, the general. So if I change this option and I wanted to say the same thing as the name, I would replace it. And then I'm happy with the rest, I just submit. If I come over and I refresh, this name is now different. And so on and so forth. You can change the image, you can change the theme, and more. These here are the pages. If I want to add a new page, in the main dashboard, I would go to the pages area. These are the current ones that you just saw, these ones here. So maybe I want to change the sample page first, so I can edit this. So it's an existing page. I would change the name to say test page in capital. And then I would say, please ignore this page. I'll make this maybe a title so it's visible more clearly. And if I update and I come to this page and I refresh, this should now change to test page. And if I open, it should now have that information. If I need to add a new page, I would simply select Add New under the Pages section. I would give it a name, something like Contact Me. It will automatically generate a link. You don't need to worry about that right now. Maybe call me at 0208 231 2435, like that. I can save. So if I come back now and I refresh, a new page is added, Contact Me. And if I open, I see that information. So that is how you go on to create pages and add content. Let's say you wanted to add a comment. You would come to the comments area. And if there are any comments added on your page, they would be visible here. Or if you had any pages that would allow for comments to be added, they would be visible here. There's also a part to create like posts, but that's usually within the page, which over here, okay. Add a new post. So currently it has the welcome post. And if I view this, it shows, okay, it shows the date. So you could maybe create a new post and say, hello there, and call this as, this is a test post for this page. And then if I submit that, now the post is available. This is the link. If I open it, I will see that it appears like that. It says, hello there. This is the test for this page. And it shows that it's uncategorized, it's produced by myself, and I can leave a comment. So someone could come here and say, hello there, this is a comment. So you could assume that the comments area is where you add comments to a student's sites on their site that they've created and added you to them. So if I've added the content and you're happy, you could proceed to say post comment, and now the comment is added here. If we go back to the site and click the comments area, you'll see that the comment is now available. So this is the owner of the site. So let's say I'm the student, you have put the comment, I will see your comment, I will read it. If I wanted to approve it, so it's available on my site, I could approve, but it's currently done by default, or I could unapprove, so it can be removed. And or I can also make changes to it in case I need to. To add users to your site, you'd go to the users section. You will see currently that there's only one user and the number of posts they've made. You would select add existing and provide a name of that user. Say I select my other account. That would be by the username, by the way. You provide the role. By default, leave them as subscriber because you don't want to give them high-level access to make changes. You only want them to read and see the site, and that's it. The changes, you still have access to do that. You're happy, you just proceed to add the existing user. If you view users, you'll now see that there are two people, and they have different user access. Then we said we'll talk about how you can create a class blog, which is more or less like an assignment within Campus Press that allows for users to be able to create something, upload, and you're able to play around with it to see their submissions and so on and so forth. To do that, you'll go to the My Class area. The students will come to join a class. By yourself as an instructor, you'll go to create a class. You will say this is a class blog. These options are now active. Depending on how you want to set your blog, you can read this and make the changes as you see fit. So something like allow students to post on the class blog, you don't want them to do that. You want the class blog to just be available to them to access, but you don't want them to make changes. So leave this as no. If you want to approve any comments on posts, you could select these. Otherwise, you could leave your students to police themselves by not selecting them. In the privacy, you may want to leave this again as unregistered users. And then currently the teachers, it's only one person, so myself. So I could select myself, and if I add any other lecturer to be a teacher, they would also automatically be able to access any sites that students have added within this class blog, and I'll show you that in a moment. You may want to allow the students to be able to edit these options. Now, like I said earlier, if you have a specific due date, let's say by the 25th of August, no more changes should be made. You simply come to the class blog and remove all of these options. Any of the sites that are currently added or associated with the class blog will no longer be able to make those changes. So if you're happy, you proceed to save. So now the class blog is created and you will see these options. The student blogs, this is all the students that have been added. So for example, if I go back to this view, I think, all right, not that one. Let me copy the name and go to the previous view and log in. All right, so from here, if I go to, all right. All right, so let me find an easier way to show you this. Currently, that's the blog. If I go to users and, all right, so I'm going to remove myself from this student account as a user or owner of this blog so that I won't be able to access it anymore. And then I will try to add it to myself as a student. So let me try that. If I go to one of this site and then I go to join class blog, but before that, let me remove this one. So this is the student site that is available here. I've just removed it, so it won't create any problems when I try to add it on another site that the student owns. So here as a student, I go to one of the blogs I have, which is this one, and I go to class blog, I select join a class. I now provide the name of the class blog, which was my student ID, then test site. And then I search. If it's found, I will see this. I can click to view, but this will show me that I can't view it because I need to join first. The first thing I need to do is request to join. The request is now sent. And then, as a lecturer, when I come this way, I will see now that there's a request there, student 1, and this is the student. I will approve them, and now they're added to my blog, like that. Since they're added, if I come back here and I refresh, why is it okay, view class blog, I will now see that the class blog is visible. So everything that my tutor created, like the contact me page, about, the test page, the file that if I click would download automatically, I can see all of that. So that's the process of creating the class blog as a lecturer and then allowing a student to join your class blog by using the name of the class. So in Campus Press, we've seen how to access it, how to create a class blog, creating posts, adding pages, creating comments, adding users, and all of those, including creating the site as well. So the next thing we'll be looking at is, if I close these because they're no longer needed, the next thing we'll be looking at is Poll Everywhere. So with Poll Everywhere, as I said, accounts will be created for you, but I would need to confirm, as I said earlier, that whether the institution partners can get access, because at the moment, it mainly links to those who have uwl.ac.uk accounts. If I go back and log into Poll Everywhere, when you go to polleverywhere.com, you can log in, provide a username from the account that you have been created with, which we'll do that at the end of the session. There we go. So once you're here, you will have this main page as the main activities area. You can create folders so you can group your items or your activities so you know where they are. A good example of what I've done is under the CPD training. So this training that I'm doing, I've grouped them for years. So I know 2020 to 2021. If I open that, I know that now it's the August month. So come September, I will have that month as well. And then I have all of the trainings for each of the sessions taking place within that specific month. So currently it's the one we're doing at the moment. And in that I have 2 events, one of which is currently still active, and I can choose to deactivate this. And then later we will do the last one. Now, how do we create such a thing? The first thing is when you go back to the main page under the first activities area, you have the option to create a folder. You can provide a folder name. Once the folder is available, you can open it, and inside it you can now create an activity or another folder if you want to. But in this case, I'll go straight to activity. And then you have a few choices, and if you can click more, you will have much more options. The one I showed you earlier, which we did when we started the session, that was the word cloud. You can also provide like multiple choice questions and others. So if I try something different, like multiple choice questions, I could give this a name like actually no, let's try clickable image, and then select the world and say, where are you from originally? Something like that. You're happy, you could create. Now it's created and it's available. So if you go back again to the same link, paulev.com/technologist, and try and maybe take part in this particular question, all it requires you to do is select the country from which you're from. And that will simply highlight here as the countries where you're originally from. If I try it on mine as well, and go to paulev.com, if you still have the paulev link from before, it should automatically sync up. So in my case, I'm from Tanzania, so if I select that, there we go. And as you can see, the options are coming through. So it's kind of a nice, neat way for you to engage your students and be able to communicate with them in a much more conducive way and more interactive. So something like that. I will exit. So once you've created the poll or the activity within the folder, you can then make it available and then have users to take part when you make it active. So at the moment it is active, so more people can continue taking part. Alternatively, I could deactivate this and they will no longer be able to. You're also able to select this and maybe share a response link. This response link will create, as I said earlier, that asynchronous activity where you can give someone the link and they can take part at any time they want to. They don't have to take part in a synchronous situation as we're doing at the moment. If you select it, you will have more options. You could choose to duplicate, move it, you want to clear any responses. You may want to delete it, you want to lock it so no more feedback is available, or you don't want it to be moved elsewhere. You could send a copy to a colleague, and then most importantly, you can create a report. You also have a few other options of downloading slide options and other stuff. The creating a report is very important because the more responses you receive, you may want to get a clear idea of how many people have taken part, what was their responses, and so on and so forth. The first option is what they call an executive summary of a report. This provides a full overview that includes all of the information that you'd normally see in these 4 other reports. If you select these 4 reports, it will provide you specific information as per the type of report. So the best one I would personally recommend is the first because it gives you everything. So if we selected that one and create report, it will generate it, and based on any responses that we received, As you see, we saw that there are 4 participants, 4 of them have given responses, and we can see it has 100% engagement. If there were multiple questions that were included within this particular poll or activity, I would be able to see all of them here, but in this case, it was only 1. From this, you could select the more information like current runs or all runs. So the current run would be the one we just did right now. If I had used the same link maybe the previous weeks or months, and I selected all runs, then it would give me every single feedback from the first day I created it and engaged people to date. The report options, these are what you may want to see. So if I select this one as well, it will now show me the aggregate results as well, not only just the engagement and a few other things. There we go. The select presenter, I'm showing that it's myself as the presenter, but in case there were more. So let's say I shared this with others and they used it as well as presenters and they received feedback from other people. I could select them from this dropdown and see what engagement they received if I shared this with someone else. If you're not happy with the report, you could of course choose to change it and select another type of report. So let's say audience response and just say save and see what that looks like. So now we're seeing just the response from the audiences. So each response from each particular person is seen and what feedback that they gave. And of course, the same would be for the others. When you're happy and now you want to say download it. So if I go back to executive summary and select download, I will get a copy of it on my machine as a CSV file. Or alternatively, I could print it in case I want to have a physical copy of it as well. All right, so if we go back, we now want to say share an activity. The activities are shared amongst teams. So if I come to that one, nope, not that one, this one, yes. So for all of you, what I would need to confirm, which I think you have added in the sign-up sheet, the schools that you're associated with, so that I can add you once you've created your account and associate you with one of the groups available. The reason why this is important is because you're able to share the activities amongst yourself and your team. So for instance, if I show you one of the activities I have, so like this test one here, I could select it and go to share it, and it will show me the 2 teams that I'm associated with. If I say the learning technology stuff only, not the entire Expert Academy, and save, that is now shared by my team members. And you can clearly see here that it has that little icon to show that it's shared amongst others. The others do not have it. This means any team members from the learning technology team, so if we can search here, learning technology. So these 4 team members, colleague Noor, the team, and another colleague Sohail, they will all be able to access that particular activity that I just shared with them. And what that means is they're able to use it within their own sessions and get feedback, and we're able to generate reports by viewing the participant like I showed you earlier. They're also able to share their own personal activities within this particular conversation. And then I myself as a member, I'm able to use their activities during my presentations as well. All right. So that's generally mainly to do with Poll Everywhere. The other thing that I would like to show you is how I added it within my PowerPoint slides. The first thing you should have is the Poll Everywhere application. As you can see, I have mine here. Now at the moment, it has not synced. I should have the other new activity I just created here with you. So if I try to click on sync and say all, it will now sync up and anything I have online will come back here. So I know it's available. All right, let me close. Okay, there we go. But let me close this for now. There we go. So now this is the other folder that I just created and added your responses. I've refreshed it and now it's come through and I'm able to open and I can see the previous responses. We had 4 of them and I can view more information. Now, as long as you have the activities open, you have Poll Everywhere logged in and you have your activities opened. If you want to add a new activity within the PowerPoint slide, you would need to have PowerPoint open. So if I go to PowerPoint here, move out. There we go. Once I have PowerPoint open, I select the slide where I want to add this new activity, which I know it's the end of the slide there. Back in Poll Everywhere, I will select the new activity. So if I go back here, there, this one, and say this one again, and maybe how did you find the session? And I select Insert Slides. So it will now generate and has inserted it. So I did this one before, so I'll cancel it. And now I have that link accessible. When I'm ready, when I want to then present and engage your conversations, then I can just make this active and directly from within the slides, the participants are able to take part. But before I go to do that and end the session, let's quickly discuss Blackboard Ally. Like I said earlier, at the very start of the session, Blackboard Ally is the alternative formats application or software that's directly added within Blackboard. For any files you upload, it will create a report and an alternative format index that students could use to select different alternative formats of that particular content. This particular icon is the alternative formats for Blackboard Ally. That's what your students will see. When they select that option, it will show them the alternative formats available for this one item. So then they may select something like an audio file, so it will download an audio file that would read out the content that has been typed. So like this content here. To see the overall accessibility report for the module, you would come to this section and view the module ID. Here, first of all, you would see the individual reports for each one of your documents submitted, for those that it has been able to generate. The thing that's yellow, it's medium. That's red, it's definitely not good. And the one that's green is great. So if you click on that, it should show you more information, and you're also able to identify what the problem is. So in this case, it's something that's missing a description, which is what's usually the assistive technologies are able to read out for people who may be blind to be able to understand the document or the image shared. So here I would say image of Adrian Bell. At the moment it's 25, but if I add this, now it's fully accessible, it will turn to 100%. To view the holistic view, if you go to the course tools and select accessibility report, you will now see the report for the entire module, everything that has been uploaded. It will count by type, so all PDFs and everything else. And I can view more of this and find more information and the accessibility score and make the necessary changes as I see fit. Going back to overview, I can see currently it's at 59%, but hopefully we should be aiming to have this at least at around 80, so that all the content we have we know is fully accessible and that it's in a way that it makes it easier for those who need to use alternative methods to be able to read and maybe understand the content. So that's it regarding the accessibility report. And that is the very end of the session. So if I come back here and I make this full screen and I go on to activate the activity, and if you don't mind, could you please just select one of those options to let me know how you found the session. In case there are any questions, we have about 15 minutes, so we could spend about 5 minutes to cover those questions, and the last 10 minutes would be for you to take part in preparing some feedback for your CPD event, because this is part of it. And there's also the feedback for the entire event as well. One of these is for HR to show that you have taken part, and you can also include this as part of your activities for CPD activities you've done, and that counts towards your professional development. And then the other is just for the event itself, not only to help me, but also help the team to understand how useful this event was and what else we could do in the future to make it better. So in case that's everyone who has provided feedback, I will lock this now and then move out. And just now, apologies, let me share the links. Just go here. I'll close this. In case there are any questions, please do ask while I find that information, and we'll have another discussion about them. I know the session was fairly long because there's been a lot to discuss, but hopefully, I hope that it has been very useful and you are able to learn at least something. So the first one, this is the new CPD feedback form. So that's the one that you need to complete, and please try and do that now. Can you change photo images such as those which are on the module section? All right, let me share my screen again quickly. All right, so I'm assuming you mean these images here. If that's the case, then should be able to. If I'm not mistaken, they are part of customization teaching style, I believe. Okay, because this one will add a banner, but let me check if that banner will take effect for everything. So the banner should be added here, like this big image. Obviously, it's out of proportion because it's really huge. But if I come back, okay, it has not yet changed. Okay, I'll just select it here, then edit change. So when you're in the module and you want to remove this image and replace it with something different, simply select the 3 dots and then select edit course image. And from here, you can add a new image. So if I do it for that one, and I submit. All right, so that image is too large, but it has been cropped, and that's what it would look like. Another question, how can you add a new module? And great, okay. So modules are not added by anyone, they're done automatically. There is a system called Unity where the modules are created, they're automatically added and pushed to Blackboard. How that works is after the 6 weeks, before the 6 weeks when the module is due to start, they should automatically be available. And depending on the level of access you have, let's say you're the course leader, module leader, and others, you would have this access here called admin. When you come to this access and select something like courses to view all the courses and modules, I would say not blank and say search, and this will show me all the different courses available. Now, if it's for something I need, actually, let me contains, put it as term, and 2020-21. But these are the ones that we're doing at the moment, no? 2021-22 for the new academic year. So these are the ones that will be taking place starting September next month. I can view them here for those that are available, and I can open, I can see that the module is there, I can enroll myself and start to take part. However, not everyone, like I said, has this level of access. So if you are a module leader, you should speak to your school administrator so they enroll you as such. And when they enroll you as a module leader for that module, it ensures that for all future instances of the module, you're automatically enrolled. And then if you have any other role like an HPL or someone else, then your school administrator or your course leader or a module leader would enroll you to the module by themselves. And the way they do that, once they have access to the module, they would go to the users section in the course management here. They would select users. They would search for a user to enroll. They would provide your name. And once they've provided the name, then you can be enrolled. Alternatively, they could click here, find by name. Let's say search for that one. So say yourself, I can proceed to submit. I can enroll you as someone, say an instructor, and then I can submit. And there you are. So that's how they would normally do it to enroll you on the module. Any other question? All right, so in the meantime, please do take the next few minutes. You're most welcome. Please take the next few minutes to complete this survey. And once that's done, before we go on, turn it in. Is it only when the date passes for the results to be published that they will be released to students? Well, that's dependent. So the date you're referring to is probably the post date. Now, in the post date, like I said, you have the option to allow this, because in the meantime here, this was very old. Let me select the new one we created today. Edit. So here the post date is 23rd September next month. If I go to the optional settings, I can see here that it says reveal grades to students only on post date. I selected this as yes. What this means is only on the post date or after will the grades and feedback be shown, and that's what we recommend. The reason is, while you're marking, if you have not yet done second marking in others, changes may take place. So if a student sees that today they got 50 and tomorrow they have 30, they may complain. So if you disable that option and only allow them to be shown on the post date, they will only see their grades after the fact. So if done your marking, second marking has taken place, then they can see their grades. But if you set this as no, then it won't care about the post date. Any grade that you reveal, or if you assign a grade to a student and as you continue marking, that student who already has their grade will automatically be able to see it. You're welcome. Please, as I said, please do complete the survey. And for those of you who have, if you don't mind, just type done in the message, because that's one of the very important surveys that we're trying to run for these events. There is also another one that's part of your CPD development that HR would normally need to know the activities that you have done, and I'll be sharing that in a moment. This second one that's for HR, you can do at a later time, and it's not only linked to CPD for HR purposes. So this one is not only linked for this session, it's linked for any CPD sessions that you've done. So whether it's these or some others at a different place, or it could be something at a different institution or different companies, all of that, you simply add it for that second link. That first link is for this session. And if I was to share my screen one last time, just to show you what it looks like, there is a part where you would need to select the session name. So just remember to select Introduction to UWL Learning Technologies. So from here, it's a very quick multiple choice and drop down, survey. You would select your role, whatever type of role you have. You would select the school that you're associated with. And on this one, simply scroll down here and select Introduction to UWL Learning Technologies. Then provide the date, which is today, for when the session has taken place, and just select these as they fit for the particular statements. If you have no further comments, then just type none or not applicable. Done, thank you. Thank you, excellent. So only a few more to go. Thank you. There is a question that was asked in a private message asking about a certificate of participation. So technically, your certificate of participation would be the HR link, which again, I'll send again now, this one, which like I said, you can complete that at any time. And it's for any of the CPD events you've done. So if I quickly share my screen again, just to show you what that looks like, it's fairly longer. And you'd have the options to set the different information as to what of the CPD events you've attended. So if I click on this, you will see that this, again, as you see, it has more information because it's primarily for HR purposes. You'll provide your details there and what type of staff you are, the emails and everything. Then down here, you have this information. So you would say any and all of the CPD events you've attended. So technically, you do not get like a certificate, but it is recorded on your HR record that you have taken part in a CPD event. There are things that you'd have to show that you've been doing as part of your CPD during an academic year. This is part of that HR record, so they would know, say, someone like Ria has taken place to today's event, they've learned something. So all of that feedback you would add here. Most of these are optional, as you can see, but just to put there is also a reference for yourself for future. So this would technically be that certificate that you're looking for. Any last minute questions before we end the session? Okay, I think that's everything. You're most welcome. All right. Nope, perfect. So thank you all for attending, and my apologies, I did not fully introduce myself. My name is Mrisha Abeid, and I'm a learning technologist with the Expert Academy, and I'm the one running the sessions. The ones I should bring to mind are some of those that you probably may be interested for. Some of you may have already registered, which is perfect. But if you haven't, then I'll just point them out before the end of this session, so you have them in mind. Is Expert part of UWL? Yes, it is an internal team. It is part of UWL. No worries at all. Expert Academy is part of UWL directly within. In fact, we are in the third floor of the Lady Byron building in SMR, and yeah, you can reach us here, you can reach us by email, you can reach us by number. And just for fun, actually, let me add those here as this. And let me just say, I forgot to add this one. Currently it's at BY03 032. So that's our email, that's our number, that's our office. This is our teaching hub. It's our guidance for staff. I forgot to show this as well. My apologies. So let me do that now. And this one is the guidance for staff. So everything I've discussed here, you will have on this particular page, just for like additional information. So if you visit the teaching hub that we call teaching hub, which is this, it's also hosted on Campus Press, which I just trained you on a few minutes ago. You can access all of this information, guidance on teaching, courses that we have that we're currently running, the learning technologies that we discussed and the guidance you can find about them. It's information about the Festival of Learning, which takes place once a year. The next one will be coming up next year, July.
It's 13
and so
hours.
on and so forth. And lastly, the other link, it's this one, the staff guidance pages. And this is showing you guidance for each of the technologies where you can learn more about the things we've discussed. This is one that we keep adding on monthly basis or weekly basis, depending on frequency. So most of the guidance we discussed, plus more frequently asked questions, will be available here for your reference. Last few questions. You say you'd add a dummy course. Yes, I will do that after the end of the session. Now that I have all of your names and your registrations, I will create the course and I will send that to you. And just a note for myself, I will also send these links to the Teaching Hub and the guidance page. I will also send this, which is the continuous professional development for UWL. That's where you came to join this session. You may also be interested in these three others. This one looks at primarily collaborate only. This one is Turnitin, but it's looking at how you can interpret a Turnitin similarity report to determine whether a student has done any misconduct to plagiarize content and stuff like that. And of course, this one is looking at how you can create accessible documents online and on the web using Microsoft Office or websites. So if you're interested, I will share this as well in the links or in the emails I will send you this afternoon. I would like academic course, perfect. Anyone else who would like to get academic course? Or alternatively, I could just create one for all of you, which is not a problem. And like I said, for the poll everywhere, for those of you who don't have accounts yet, I will create one of those as well, and I will confirm this in the email. And for those who are from the partner institutions, I will check if it is possible, but if it's not, then I will just confirm that in your own emails to let you know. But I guess that's it. So